Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
Used of opinions and actions, far beyond the norm. Radical opinions on education. Especially of leaves. Located at the base of a plant or stem, especially arising directly from the root or rootstock or a root-like stem. Radical leaves. An atom or group of atoms with at least one unpaired electron. In the body, it is usually an oxygen molecule that has lost an electron and will stabilize itself by stealing an electron from a nearby molecule. In the body, free radicals or high-energy particles that ricochet wildly and damage cells. Linguistics, the form of a word after all affixes are removed. Markedly new or introducing radical change. Radical political views. Chemistry, two or more atoms bound together as a single unit and forming part of a molecule. A character conveying the lexical meaning of a logogram. A person who has radical ideas or opinions. Arising from or going to the root or source. A radical flaw in the plan. Mathematics, a quantity expressed as the root of another quantity. Of or relating to or constituting a linguistic root. A radical verb form. Used of opinions and actions, far beyond the norm. Extremist political views. A person who holds extreme views. Used of opinions and actions, far beyond the norm. An ultra-conservative. Especially of leaves. Located at the base of a plant or stem, especially arising directly from the root or rootstock or a root-like stem. Basal placentation. Serving as or forming a base. Of or being the essential or basic part. A basal reader. An atom or group of atoms with at least one unpaired electron. In the body, it is usually an oxygen molecule that has lost an electron and will stabilize itself by stealing an electron from a nearby molecule. In the body, free radicals or high-energy particles that ricochet wildly and damage cells. A terrorist network intensely opposed to the United States that dispenses money and logistical support and training to a wide variety of radical Islamic terrorist groups, has cells in more than 50 countries. Of low birth or station, base, is archaic in this sense. Base-born wretches with dirty faces. Use purified cocaine, by burning it and inhaling the fumes. Lowest support of a structure. It was built on a base of solid rock. A support or foundation. The base of the lamp. The most important or necessary part of something. A place that the runner must touch before scoring. Illegitimate. Numeration system, the positive integer that is equivalent to 1 in the next higher counting place. A phosphoric ester of a nucleoside, the basic structural unit of nucleic acids, DNA or RNA. A lower limit. Serving as or forming a base. The painter applied a base coat followed by 2 finishing coats. The fundamental assumptions from which something is begun or developed or calculated or explained. Linguistics, the form of a word after all affixes are removed. The place where you are stationed and from which missions start and end. The stock of basic facilities and capital equipment needed for the functioning of a country or area. The industrial base of Japan. Having or showing an ignoble lack of honor or morality. That liberal obedience without which your army would be a base rabble. Any of various water-soluble compounds capable of turning litmus blue and reacting with an acid to form a salt and water. Bases include oxides and hydroxides of metals and ammonia. Not adhering to ethical or moral principles. Base and unpatriotic motives. Installation from which a military force initiates operations. The attack wiped out our forward bases. Use as a basis for, found on. Base a claim on some observation. A flat bottom on which something is intended to sit. A tub should sit on its own base. Anatomy, the part of an organ nearest its point of attachment. The base of the skull. Debased, not genuine. An attempt to eliminate the base coinage. Electronics, the part of a transistor that separates the emitter from the collector. Situate as a center of operations. We will base this project in the new lab. The bottom or lowest part. The base of the mountain. The bottom side of a geometric figure from which the altitude can be constructed. The base of the triangle. The principal ingredient of a mixture. Glycerinated gelatin is used as a base for many ointments. Used of metals, consisting of or alloyed with inferior metal. Base coins of aluminum. A simple form inferred as the common basis from which related words in several languages can be derived by linguistic processes. Someone from whom you are descended, but usually more remote than a grandparent. Become settled or established and stable in one's residence or lifestyle. Linguistics, the form of a word after all affixes are removed. The set of values that give a true statement when substituted into an equation. The place where something begins, where it springs into being. Communism's Russian root. Dig with the snout. The pig was rooting for truffles. A number that, when multiplied by itself some number of times, equals a given number. Botany, the usually underground organ that lacks buds or leaves or nodes, absorbs water and mineral salts. Usually it anchors the plant to the ground. Cause to take roots. Cheer for. She roots for the Broncos. Come into existence, originate. The problem roots in her depression. Plant by the roots. Take root and begin to grow. This plant roots quickly. The embedded part of a bodily structure such as a tooth, nail, or hair. Linguistics, the form of a word after all affixes are removed. Cylinder forming a long narrow part of something. A slender or elongated structure that supports a plant or fungus or a plant part or plant organ. Stop the flow of a liquid. Stem the tide. Linguistics, the form of a word after all affixes are removed. Thematic vowels are part of the stem. A turn made in skiing. The back of one ski is forced outward and the other ski is brought parallel to it. Front part of a vessel or aircraft. Cause to point inward. Stem your skis. Grow out of, have roots in, originate in. The increase in the national debt stems from the last war. Remove the stem from. For automatic natural language processing, the words must be stemmed. The tube of a tobacco pipe. Music, melodic subject of a musical composition. The theme is announced in the first measures. An essay, especially one written as an assignment. Linguistics, the form of a word after all affixes are removed. The subject matter of a conversation or discussion. His letters were always on the theme of love. A unifying idea that is a recurrent element in literary or artistic work. It was the usual, boy gets girl, theme. Provide with a particular theme or motive. The restaurant often themes its menus. A radical supporter of political or social revolution. Markedly new or introducing radical change. A revolutionary discovery. Of or relating to or characteristic or causing an axial or orbital turn. Advocating or engaged in revolution. Revolutionary pamphlets. Relating to or having the nature of a revolution. Revolutionary wars. Chemistry. Two or more atoms bound together as a single unit and forming part of a molecule. A set that is closed, associative, has an identity element and every element has an inverse. Form a group or group together. Any number of entities, members, considered as a unit. Chemistry. Two or more atoms bound together as a single unit and forming part of a molecule. Arrange into a group or groups. Can you group these shapes together? Beyond reasonable limits. Immoderate laughter. Original and of a kind not seen before. Of crops, harvested at an early stage of development, before complete maturity. New potatoes. Used of a living language, being the current stage in its development. Lacking training or experience. The new men were eager to fight. Having no previous example or precedent or parallel. Very recently. They are newly married. In use after medieval times. Not of long duration. Having just, or relatively recently, come into being or been made or acquired or discovered. A new law. Often followed by, to, unfamiliar. New experiences. Other than the former ones, different. They now have a new leaders. Unaffected by use or exposure. It looks like new. Reduced to the simplest and most significant form possible without loss of generality. A basic storyline. Serving as a base or starting point. A basic course in Russian. Usually in the plural, a necessary commodity for which demand is constant. A popular programming language that is relatively easy to learn. An acronym for beginners' all-purpose symbolic instruction code, no longer in general use. Of or denoting or of the nature of or containing a base. Pertaining to or constituting a base or basis. A basic fact. Non-technical usage, a tiny piece of anything. Physics and chemistry, the smallest component of an element having the chemical properties of the element. The visual appearance of something or someone. A perceptual structure. The composition presents problems for students of musical form. The phonological or orthographic sound or appearance of a word that can be used to describe or identify something. The inflected forms of a word can be represented by a stem in a list of inflections to be attached. Make something, usually for a specific function. Any spatial attributes, especially as defined by outline. Establish or impress firmly in the mind. A body of students who are taught together. Create, as an entity. Social groups form everywhere. Biology. A group of organisms within a species that differ in trivial ways from similar groups. A category of things distinguished by some common characteristic or quality. Sculpture is a form of art. A life-size dummy used to display clothes. Develop into a distinctive entity. Alternative names for the body of a human being. The spatial arrangement of something is distinct from its substance. To compose or represent. This wall forms the background of the stage setting. Give shape or form to. Form the young child's character. Physical chemistry. A distinct state of matter in a system. Matter that is identical in chemical composition and physical state and separated from other material by the phase boundary. A mold for setting concrete. They built elaborate forms for pouring the foundation. An ability to perform well. He was at the top of his form. An arrangement of the elements in a composition or discourse. The essay was in the form of a dialogue. A particular mode in which something is manifested. His resentment took the form of extreme hostility. A printed document with spaces in which to write. He filled out his tax form. Assume a form or shape. The water formed little beads. The phonological or orthographic sound or appearance of a word that can be used to describe or identify something. The phonological or orthographic sound or appearance of a word that can be used to describe or identify something. A piece of stored information that is used to identify an item in an information storage and retrieval system. The phonological or orthographic sound or appearance of a word that can be used to describe or identify something. An organization regarded as part of a larger social group. The coach said the offensive unit did a good job. Any division of quantity accepted as a standard of measurement or exchange. The dollar is the United States unit of currency. An assemblage of parts that is regarded as a single entity. The team is a unit. A single undivided natural thing occurring in the composition of something else. Units of nucleic acids. An individual or group or structure or other entity regarded as a structural or functional constituent of a whole. Reduced the number of units and installations. A single undivided whole. An idea is not a unit that can be moved from one brain to another. A single undivided natural thing occurring in the composition of something else. A block of material used in construction work. Represent by means of a graph. A visual representation of the relations between certain quantities, represented as points, plotted with reference to a set of axes. A written symbol that is used to represent speech. A visual display of information. Plot upon a graph. A written symbol that is used to represent speech. A written symbol that is used to represent speech. A formal recommendation by a former employer to a potential future employer describing the person's qualifications and dependability. Requests for character references are all too often answered evasively. A person of a specified kind, usually with many eccentricities. A real character. The inherent complex of attributes that determines a person's moral and ethical actions and reactions. Education has for its object the formation of character. An imaginary person represented in a work of fiction, play or film or story. She is the main character in the novel. A written symbol that is used to represent speech. The Greek alphabet has 24 characters. A characteristic property that defines the apparent individual nature of something. The radical character of our demands. An actor's portrayal of someone in a play. Engrave or inscribe characters on. Genetics. An attribute, structural or functional, that is determined by a gene or group of genes. Good repute. He is a man of character. A human being. Characteristic of or meant for a single person or thing. An individual serving. Being or characteristic of a single thing or person. Individual drops of rain. A human being. Separate and distinct from others of the same kind. Mark the individual pages. Concerning one person exclusively. We all have individual cars. A single organism. Causing or capable of causing death. Mortal combat. A human being. Involving loss of divine grace or spiritual death. Subject to death. Mortal beings. Unrelenting and deadly. Mortal enemy. A human being. There was too much for one person to do. A grammatical category used in the classification of pronouns, possessive determiners, and verb forms according to whether they indicate the speaker, the addressee, or a third party. Stop talking about yourself in the third person. A human body, usually including the clothing. A weapon was hidden on his person.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.